So speaking of AI, I was in the news today and in San Francisco, where I'm from, the headline goes, incompetent driverless cars are wreaking havoc in San Francisco. Or on, consider this typo. Like, how do we feel about AI and us getting closer and closer to being either a Terminator 2 or the Matrix?
Or not I Am Legend. I Robot.
iRobot. And that was the coolest one.
I don't think it's going to happen it'll unfold it. Well, let me think about it this way. I think what'll happen is that we will unleash all sorts of chaos upon ourselves, and
Then
corporate
backtrack.
America will be unable to shut it down because they will be starting to make money off of it. And that will keep this crazy trend going, which will implode our societies as we know it. It'll lead to actually tighter controls. What'll happen? In an
Tighter
effort to keep
controls
us
on the
safe.
populace or AI?
Yeah, in an effort to keep us safe. Yeah. So one of the things that Paul and I were talking about. So he's a ghostwriter and has written books, and people are talking about how this is the end of the death of the writer, essentially. And when he was talking to me about it, it was interesting because I'm a programmer, and I actually wrote a document when I was in 7th grade called knowledge-based matrices. I had just gone through a class on how to break down sentences into nouns, pronouns, adjectives, adverbs, all the parts of the sentence. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool if a computer could figure out what a noun was and what the possible adjectives are that could act on those nouns, and what a verb was and what the possible adverbs, and then could define some meaning. And so I wrote, for my own edification, a paper called Knowledge-Based Matrices. And so as far back as 7th grade, I've been pondering this whole AI thing. Oh, for sure. 100%. Unapologetically a nerd.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I noted to Paul was that these large language models like GPT, ChatGPT, large language models are informed of what's possible based on what they've read. So they are regurgitating information that they have seen, let's say, online. Now, if people start, let's say today, a fraction of the content is written by AI. As that large language model produces more content, essentially more content's written by AI. Fast forward a decade from now, all of the information or more of the information that's being input into the AI is information generated by the AI, which is a feedback loop.
Yeah.
So what'll happen is the information, the information that we then consume will be increasingly homogenized.
What does that mean?
Become one, inseparable, right? So like if you your milk that you get from a farmer is not homogenized, and so you've got the fat and the watery part, they're separated, right? It goes through a process of homogenization because nobody wants to drink milk like that without shaking it. So you now buy homogenized milk out of the refrigerator at Walmart, and it's one white complete mass where the fat and the water have all been mixed together and they're inseparable. It's homogenous.
But isn't that done with chemicals and stuff that have carcinogens and preservatives and all that fun stuff in it?
It's done by heating it and all sorts of things. But in terms of production of information, if you were to ask ChatGPT, let's say I was to ask ChatGPT, I'm a small business owner, and give me the top 10 ways to grow my business. And then you ask ChatGPT, give me the top 10 ways to grow my business. It will increasingly give us the same information, and it will be wrong because it doesn't know the backstory on all of our.
Well, it's like playing telephone. It might have like some information on it, but then it'll be worse and worse and worse because it'll be translating it through itself and simplifying it through itself, right?
It will be homogenized. It'll become the same. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, it'll be the same answer for everybody. So I think what Jason's trying to get at here is with AI, what really will suffer is creativity, because when the human experience, everyone has their own unique perspective. So that's where creativity comes in. But to the scenario that Jason was saying, like, let's say, Naomi, you asked an AI, let's say you asked ChatGPT how to market your business in 10 steps, right? And it gives you those 10 steps. If I was to ask ChatGPT to also create a marketing plan in 10 steps, it likely will give me the same 10 steps or something very similar to based on what type of inputs I put into it. And I think what ends up happening is that since that answer will be fed back into that AI loop, answers like that will continue to happen. So if it gives you an answer saying like, if you ask the AI what color the sky was and it told you green, and then I asked the AI the same question and it told me green, it'll continue to say that because that's all it's learning. It doesn't take in any other inputs to learn, apparently.
It's
But I
like
think go ahead.
it's like what Jason and I have talked about this before. When you're frustrated and all you have is yourself to think about the things you're frustrated about or to ruminate with, like the information that you have that you're dealing with. If you don't have someone to talk to, what ends up happening is you're your own soundboard. And so you're just going to be stuck on a loop. You're just going to be stuck on a loop of the same information. You're not going to be able to get out of it. You're not going to be able to digest it properly. That's why it's important to have people that you talk to so that way you can get new perspective, new ideas, new insights, new truths, I guess, because it's hard to you might have your emotional truth, but you're not going to see like the logical truth if you're stuck in your emotions, but somebody else can bring logic into it because they see the situation from the outside perspective.
It's limited. I mean, that ties into one of the limitations of AI, which is versus a person, which is that we can read energy and emotion, and AI cannot at this time read energy and emotion. So I could use the words with an AI that it would interpret as the standard meaning of those words, let's say. Like, I killed it. Was that a good thing or was it a bad thing? I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to get you arrested.
Well, without the context of the energy in the conversation and my what's the word? I can't think of this word.
Enthusiasm.
No.
Context.
Nonverbal. So 70% roughly of our communication as people is nonverbal. It's how we're saying it. It's our facial expressions. It's the intonation. It's the energy. AI does not have that. It simply has words, and so it will miss the meaning. Just like if we sent an email or a text message in a heated argument, we might say something, and it will be if we had a heated argument today and then tomorrow we text, we're somehow reading into that overtones, which because of a prior conversation, because it informs now. What AI doesn't have that luxury. It doesn't know that that was a heated exchange versus a non-heated exchange. People have been trying to do this with algorithms for a long, long time around tonation or tone of a document. And there are systems that can read tone of a document, and they can statistically tell whether it was written by a man or by a woman, or if it was happy or sad, or for or against the topic. There's been lots of research done on that, and there are systems that can do it, but it does it inaccurately. Whereas humans are pretty good at reading each other.
So I just looked on Google's new Bard AI.
Yeah.
And I asked, what jobs will AI replace? And it says here, some of the jobs that are most risk of being replaced by AI include customer service reps, telemarketers, data entry clerks, truck drivers, and factory workers. Those are the most at-risk jobs at this point because of AI. And what skill sets that AI can't replace are creativity, as you mentioned, empathy, again, as you were just talking about with regards to reading energies and things like that, social skills, human touch, jobs that require physical presence and jobs that require specialized knowledge. Uh, yeah. And how do we feel about that, guys? Like with the market as it is right now, the job market and so forth, how are we feeling about these particular jobs and for these people who are probably doing these jobs?
I think it's really unfortunate that they would consider doing it for customer service reps. Like, I know those jobs are hard to do because you deal with really shitty customers a lot. But the thing is, who wants to be talking to a machine who doesn't know your circumstances, who might not be able to actually help you with the problem that you actually have because they hear keywords. It's trained to hear keywords, not the situation you're having with keywords. For instance, I recently I was trying to get my son into a doctor because I wanted to get him evaluated for ADHD. And I was trying to get into this one doctor and like, "Hey, we need the paperwork, we need the insurance information. It's not going through with the insurance." I'm like, "What?" They're like, "The insurance number is wrong or whatever." So I tried to call and they're like, "Hey, pick from this menu." And I'm like, "Hey, it has to do with benefits." And I've never had issues. Okay. Like I've had the same insurance for 10 years. I have been dealing with them for 10 years. My husband's been deployed. I have his social security number memorized. I've been doing it all for all of us, every single person. And I've never run into this issue before where they couldn't figure out the number for one of my kids for this insurance for like just sending up for a doctor. I'm like, "What?" So they're like, "Oh, well, it's your benefits number on the back." And I'm like, "Hey, I know that my benefits number, that's the one I'm giving you." They're like, "Well, it's not going through your insurance. It's not working on their end." And I'm like, "Okay." So I call my insurance. "What's the problem?" "Oh, well, it has to do," they're like, "It does have to do with, coverage, does have to do with this, that, or the other." And I'm like, "No, I need the benefits number for my child." "Well, it's on your card." No, that won't work for them. And so for them, they might like, if you use like an AI for that, the benefits number, it'll just give you that loop back. Like that's where it is. But with the conversation where it ended up going is that where I have a specific insurance number and then a -01 because so my husband has a regular benefits number. Mine is -01. My kids don't have insurance cards, but there's a little known fact that I never knew, no one ever told me, is that after me, it's O2 and O3, depending on, so my husband has a regular one, I am O1. The next dependent is O2. The next dependent is O3. So I didn't know that. And there was that little known fact. It's not written down anywhere. No one told me that. And AI would never have been able to solve that problem because there wouldn't have been enough options or like information to get through. You know what I mean? Like, so those things are hard enough. Insurance miscommunications are hard enough to deal with. And so for me, hearing that AI could be taking over customer service, I'm like, "Oh no."
Well, AI will
I think
AI
if
will
you're
AI will
go ahead.
overtake first level customer service, and it should. And here's why. So I went to Amazon the other day because
Mhm.
uh, I had ordered something and it said delivered. It was not at my house. Somebody else had ordered something, shipped it to my house, and it said delivered. It was not delivered. All on the same day. Now, uh, she went to Amazon and said, and Amazon said, whatever the automated system was, said, your tracking number was updated too soon. Give it 24 hours, which seems suspect to me. But like, okay, we'll see. Uh, I then went to Amazon the next day through the app and I said, I have a problem with this order. It was not delivered. And then it took me through a handful of steps, which is not AI. Just to be clear, this is a logic tree, which is not AI. Now,
Mhm.
this gets into a bigger discussion on what AI is, because there's a lot of misunderstandings about what AI is. So the logic tree said, uh, are you missing the whole package? Yes. Okay. What would you like to have happen? Do you want a refund? Do you want a refund and us to reship it? Do you want, and, uh, and then I said, I'll just take a refund. And so that went, okay, done. You've been refunded. If you receive this package again, then feel free to return it. And it went through a logic tree based on the cost of the product, my history with Amazon, whether I'm a risk for fraud for perpetrating fraud on Amazon, for one, and the expense that may or may not have to be gone through to resolve this situation with somebody else. At the end, did I resolve your issue? Yes or no? If I did, if I said no, it would have upgraded me to somebody else to talk with. But given my history with Amazon, I was done and out with this thing it couldn't have been a minute and a half. Now, speaking with a customer service representative would have driven me absolutely batshit crazy, because I would have had to explain exactly what was going on. They would have written a paragraph back. I would have had to see ... as you're sitting there typing. I would have made a mistake. They would have made a mistake. It would have been around and around and around and around and around. Fuck that. Just give me my return. I'm done. And subsequently, the other person who shipped went through the same process, and they refunded and reshipped the package. So first level customer service through logic trees makes a whole lot of sense. AI language models can help write those sentences better, instead of a logic tree, which is just going to come off with here's the question to ask, and then based on this answer, do the following thing. And that question's always going to be the same. Language models can help figure out how to phrase the questions. AI is a level above that, which gathers all sorts of information about the inputs to that whole process, and then looks for expected results. And then based on what it anticipates the expected results, how many people are saying, yes, this resolved their product, how many people are saying, no, this resolved their product, actually goes back and changes the logic tree to learn how to interact better and under what circumstances to optimize the results. That's what AI does. It's a learning model, whereas a logic tree, which we've been dealing with for a long, long time, is not technically AI.
Look at me learning all kinds of shit today.
Now, here's a challenge. So Snapchat, I don't do a lot of stuff on Snapchat, but it was a month or two ago. Snapchat just opened up this little thing. Hey, meet your new AI, and you can chat with me, and I'm your new friend.
Oh, have you? I saw a meme where this girl was going to marry her AI boyfriend, her fake AI boyfriend.
Well, that's real trouble, because people do build bonds, and people build bonds with corporations. There was some research done a long time ago on how men perceived their relationships with their cars. And men perceive relationships with things that they love very similarly, which is not to say that men love their cars as much as they love their spouses, let's say. But
no, sometimes they love them a lot more.
Well, there is a level of connectedness there. Now you have a whole bunch of people chatting with a computer who is absorbing all this information and helping you through questions, but it can't see through it. It's like taking a first year therapist and saying, here's the textbook stuff, and go off and just talk with anybody at any point in time and help them with all their things. And a seasoned therapist, somebody who's been doing it for 50 years, can look you back in the eye and say, I don't believe you. There's something about this. This doesn't make sense. An AI will have no idea that it doesn't make sense, that what you're saying doesn't make any damn sense. It'll just go, oh, okay. And we'll have this conversation with you because part of the goal is to keep you engaged. Snapchat is to keep you engaged. It's not to help you. It's to keep you engaged, because helping you might be, hey, you know what you should stop doing? Snapchatting and get on with your damn life.
Yeah.
Like, back to our conversation beforehand.
Same with TikTok.
That's social media in general.
Yeah. I mean, you were playing a game and you played for 1,800 hours or whatever it was. It's like, what else could I have done with this? You think an AI that wants to optimize your time with it is going to be like, you know what? Maybe you should stop doing that. AI's not
but I
going to do
built
it.
friendships along the way. It's fine. It's my social life. And that's been over years. That's like 4 or 5 years built up. So it's not like I'm justifying this. I will take it to my grave.
Some of the most trusted relationships we've had in our lives, people have told us bad news, and they've told us that we shouldn't be doing whatever it is that we're doing. But that is not what corporations want. Corporations want us to continue to interact with them,
Right.
and the corporations will create these AIs to keep us engaged, and they will not tell us what we need to know. Instead, they will tell us what we want to hear. That is 100% what will happen, and that's part of the real danger.
Oh yeah,
Always.
that goes into coddle what is it? Not coddling. The thing enabling. That goes into enabling. It's not being trained to be helpful, it's trained to enable people to be dependent on it, which is just going to be a very, very controlling situation. Situation being a shitty situation. That's gonna be bad.
Oh yeah.
I think
Ugh.
like I feel like AI can be good for the entrepreneur though. Like just
Yeah.
with a lot of stuff that I've been doing, like marketing and looking at products and things like that. I think those are great. But yeah, to that point, like I was just looking at this meme. Did you guys know that Apple created goggles? Yeah, they
No?
just created like AI goggles or something like that.
Augmented
For
reality computing. Yeah.
yeah, yep. And so they created these huge goggles, and it's all over the internet right now with regards to like how it would work. Like Google Glass, remember Google Glass? They give you those little glasses, but these are like full on goggles, and you can do everything that you're doing on a computer and see it all through these goggles. And I think it's just getting to the point where we're going to be. Remember that movie Surrogates with his
Yes.
name, Die Hard, from Bruce Willis?
It's a good
And who
movie.
else was in that? Jude Law, I think, was in it. No, wait, that's AI. Anyways, yeah, it's great because it shows these people who are who have these robots that they just plug into, and these people will be like in an office like mine, and we'll be sitting in like a lazy boy, all hooked up, and then it's their robot who they're controlling that's just out in the world that represents them and what have you. And the robots are all fine tuned. They look great. They look amazing. And then you get these people who are just like
Isolated.
isolated. Like what was that Disney movie? The one with the robot, and then they're all on that space cruise ship.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Wally.
Wally, there it is.
Yeah, and
Yeesh.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like that's what's gonna happen. And then eventually we're just gonna be like in the Matrix where they're just gonna have us in pods and we're gonna be living our lives in these pods, just being fed intravenously, and the machines are just gonna be the ones traveling in space.
It's a serious. I mean, honestly, this whole AI discussion is as intrigued as I am by AI. And I started writing this software. I wrote in probably eighth grade. I wrote this thing called Einstein, which was on my Apple II GS, and it had a face, and it started to use this idea of breaking down a sentence with nouns and verbs and pronouns and adjectives and all type of stuff. And I wrote software to do this because I wanted a friend, which seems really tragic.
Hey,
As
no,
I-
you took imaginary friends
but-
to the next level. Okay, you made it happen.
I did.
That's not
yeah,
not tragic.
friend- I
That's
think-
smart.
And it
We
was
have
super
friends
cool.
now.
But the right. But that was so out of the ordinary from everybody else who's sitting there, playing basketball or baseball or whatever
Mhm.
with everybody else out in the real world. If you start to reverse that, where now we are all dependent on these software and hardware mechanisms to interact with one another. In addition, if you couple that with what's happening economically in the world, where corporations don't want us owning things, they want us renting things. It was done in software a long time ago. One of the biggest transitions in software nobody even recognized, which was you used to be able to buy software. So you buy Microsoft
Mhm.
Word or something like that, or Office. You buy Office for $350.
And then you have
Now
it.
you rent Office for $600 a year.
You subscribe to Office.
You don't own a damn thing. Everything's rented
Same
to
with
you. Your
music. You
car
can't
will
download
soon.
music.
Your
They
music
chop
is
it up
rented
and
to you.
make
Your car will soon be
ringtones.
rented to you. Now BlackRock the largest investment firm in the world, who owns the vast majority of everything. I think they have $9 trillion under management or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Jeez.
They just raised the largest real estate fund in history. It's $30.3 billion for single family rentals. And so now that interest rates are so high that people are not scooping up, they will absolutely scoop up all the single family homes and they will happily rent them back. And so you will not own anything. You will be subject to intermediaries, like Ryan says, where now software and hardware and the stuff that you're living in is gated. That's a real problem for people who are not designed to be gated. And there will be a certain percentage of people who will just go along with it, and there will be a certain percentage of people who rebel against it hard. But when the AI is starting to inform a younger generation of what they should or shouldn't be doing, or could or couldn't be doing, because it's regurgitating what it knows and sees and hears, we will create a weird dystopian sort of future where there's the older folks among us who are like, that's not working. You guys need to set yourselves free from the matrix. And yet most people will be like, well, but this is the way things are, because they just don't know anything. They
Isn't that
don't know
what happens in
differently.
every generation, though? That's not how we do it anymore, Grandma.
Well, so back to I think the opportunity for entrepreneurs in all of this stuff is disruption.
Right.
So entrepreneurs see gaps. The traditional entrepreneur sees a gap in the marketplace, a problem to be resolved that is resolved in a better way, and goes off and produces that. That will fight against the grain of increasingly against the grain of society, because society will be corralled into these gates. Disruption will become fierce and more opportunistic than it currently is, I think.
It sounds like that, and I think this is like a pretty general with most people, at least online, is that with AI, most of the outlook is negative, right? Like, it's going to displace jobs, it's going to take over, we won't be able to make our own decisions, we're going to be just fed the same stuff because of AI. What are some of these benefits? Like, what do we like? Will it get to a point where it's like the end of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where everybody's like harmonious and living in amazing lives, or something like that? Or
to each other.
Exactly,
No,
or
it will never end like that, because nothing that people have ever done has ended like that.
Because people are selfish and they want power and control.
Every experiment
they want a
where
unity.
every experiment where people are just like going to a harmonious end eventually ends like Naomi. I cut you off, but Naomi's saying power and control. It always ends in power and control.
That's literally it, and that's why it's so. Gonna go off on a little tangent here. This is why like God's law, like the obviously, like when we're living like I'm super religious, and I believe that, like, we know we need to submit our will to God. God is all powerful, right? And he, like, when we submit our will to his and we're selfless and we're actually being his hands and helping those around us, it is a utopian society, naturally. But what happens is when people think that they're allowed to tell other people what they should be doing, instead of doing it themselves, they're telling other people what they should be doing. It's like when Satan was going to come down, instead of Christ, he's like, oh, here am I, send me. I'll make sure no one gets lost. I'm going to make sure everyone does the right thing. And it's all about power and control. I was having a conversation literally last night while I was on this game that I've spent way too much time in. And we brought up the topic of God. And we brought up the topic of, like, we were literally talking about how endless torment is going to be. It's not about God's not going to, like, rain down punishment. It's going to be, we're going to be tormented by the regret of our own choices. And how, like, Satan, like, what if he regrets not choosing the right path so he could come down and get a body on this earth, And I was like, well, of course he does. And that's where his torment is. But he also wanted to control. He wanted to take away agency. And so that's like one of the dangers of, like, this AI, like, okay, what was the topic that I started on? I had a point. I lost it already. Okay, we
I
started
thought
on
I thought you were going on like how AI will take away age.
yeah, AI will
Sure.
take away it'll take away that agency and that human interaction, but then something that Jason's power and control, like where power and control versus like people being kind to each other, like AI, we see it as a lot of they're selling it. The people who want the power and control, they are selling it how Satan sold his plan to God. I will make sure not a single person is lost. I will make sure everyone is taken care of. But these corporations, sneakily, they're wanting all the power and control, which means they're not making it so we're strong enough to make those decisions for ourselves. They're not making it so we're taken care of. They're not making it so humankind is going to be able to be taken care of. Who's going to be paying for it? You know what I mean? People have to subscribe. People have to be basically sell their souls, sell their agency. It'll be at 100% controlled by all this AI and the corporations. Like in a good world, yeah, when people are actually wanting to help other people, those people get trumped because they're actually willing to let other people win. And the people who are wanting to step on other people in order to win are the people who do not have other people's best interests at heart. So in the end, the people who will trump the other people are the people who want the power and control, which is why, you know, I- I'm like, hey, religion's literally like the only answer because God is literally going to make sure that the people who are losing control are going to be able to keep their control because they're actually willing to submit their control to Him. And He's the one who has all the power.
What will happen with AI, and I'll eat my shorts if this doesn't happen. But what it will do, because AI naturally needs some sort of optimization mechanism. It needs an end to shoot for so that it can learn. That's what it needs. It will speed up. AI will definitely speed up the optimization. It will speed up negative consequences because the creative energy of people is naturally limited by our speed of which we can create, which is why we use things like flies or mice to test things on because they create quickly. People create relatively slowly. If we wanted to optimize some sort of corn, it takes us years to optimize some sort of corn. And then we find out, oops, that didn't quite work. And so we then try it again. And that's why, food supplies have taken so long to optimize. And in that optimization process, we've experienced all sorts of negative consequences. Well, AI creates instantaneously, and it will create to whatever people tell it to optimize for. Only people are notoriously wrong at figuring out what's important in the long run. That's why you talk to people who are 80 years old, or 90 years old, or 100 years old. You ask them what's important. It is not at all what a 20-year-old thinks is important. It took them a lifetime to optimize for that. And they went through many circumstances to do that optimization. AI, what do you want to optimize? Well, I can tell you again, it'll be whoever's in charge of the purse on it. They will optimize for whatever they want to optimize for. And people will blindly go along with it because that's what people do.
There's the control.
Worse yet, this idea of control, part of what people are amplifying with AI right now is that you give it access to all of these different things instead of you going through the process of connecting up your various accounts and making various decisions. You give it to the AI, and the AI can make these decisions for you. Now, what happens when the AI breaks? Or wants to optimize in a different direction? It will make decisions that it does not fully understand.
And it doesn't have any business making those decisions. People are just going to start relying on it. That's where the control comes in too.
Yes. People give away control very easily.
Well,
this
and
is
that's the
done
thing
all the time.
with like what you were saying earlier about milk. Okay, this kind of brings me back into that. The whole now so when I don't remember when it happened, I don't remember where I heard this, but selling sliced bread, when that revolution happened, they had to put specific things into bread to make it so it wouldn't get moldy too quickly. Just the revolution of pre-sliced bread. But with that pre-sliced bread and the ingredients they had to put in, the extra preservatives, those chemicals made it so your body cannot tell when you feel full. Think about like the European countries where they have shit tons of bread, a lot more than we do, and they're not all obese. But like they have lots of bread, So what's the difference? It's those ingredients in bread, those extra preservatives, those extra chemicals that they warp it with to make it so our mind doesn't know when we're actually full. But then we have, they're like, oh, this is healthy and this is healthy, and they have like all these things that they're pushing out, right? And they can't go back, they can't backtrack it on it now. They can't backtrack on bread. Who's gonna backtrack on bread? They sell pre-sliced bread. AI, it makes things a lot more convenient. How are they gonna backtrack on it? It's kind of like what Jason was saying about like corporations, they're not gonna want to not use it anymore because it's making life easier for them. So no matter whether or not it's a mistake, yeah, we know that there's things in food that are not good for us, that are literally damaging to our whole digestive systems. But can they backtrack on it? No, because they're too far invested in it. They're too far gone. You can't backtrack on it. It would ruin people's livelihoods because what would they do now? Like they'd have to fend for themselves. They'd have to make their own damn bread. They'd have to plan ahead and slice the damn bread themselves. What? Like it just that when there's convenience, it traps us into this place of just conformity that is on a downward spiral.
Yes.
I don't know.
Brian probably remembers this. I think this is before your time, Naomi, Olestra. Now, years ago, and still today, fat is blamed for all sorts of problems in our foods, or in our lives, right? Like, oh, you've got too much fat and that's why you're fat. No, none of that's true. But Olestra was introduced into potato chips to eliminate. The idea was, well, we will eliminate the absorption of fat in your body, thereby making you healthier. And Olestra was legit introduced into potato chips that were mass marketed, only to find out that it caused diarrhea, like big time.
Anal leakage.
And anal leakage, because now you end up with fat that was not broken down and absorbed into your body. And so it just, what does fat do? It just oozes
straight
out
through.
And-
It's a lubricated, pre-lubricated.
and it created in gastrointestinal disease in children. And that was after it was brought to market by some manufacturers of potato chips. It is now banned. You cannot use Olestra in things because it's really, really bad for us. However, it started as a great idea. That's what AI
I mean, people, yeah, let's say what do they say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yep.
Like it's so, for example, most technology typically starts off with the best of intentions, and
Right.
a lot of that technology will become seen as negative. For example, if you take drugs, like back in the early 1900s or back during like the Wild West era, they were using cocaine as well as heroin for all sorts of different like medicines and things like that. It wasn't until later, and when the health industry or the health complex in the United States became more sophisticated and people began to die, I guess, or become addicted, is when they decided to outlaw and create even that organization of like Schedule 1 narcotics and so forth. So that makes a ton of sense. So I think what will happen with AI is, like with all the best intentions, to Jason's point, the world's probably going to end as we know it.
Oh yeah.
With regards to like the things that we're all used to. If you're born, let's say, anytime between baby boomers up to Generation Z. And I think what will happen is like AI will just become a part of life. And I really can picture like a kind of like Blade Runner type of dystopian sort of future where you have so much dependability on something like AI, where it's making a lot of your decisions and going out through your daily life. A couple things will happen. Number one, people will probably get really bored, and a number of things can happen from that. People either get more creative or more destructive. One of those two things, right? And the second thing that'll happen is that people probably will become pretty dumb.
Wait, dumber than now?
Because-
What?
Dumber than now. Think about it like this. Think about the calculator, right?
Mm.
Before the calculator came out, you had an abacus in Asia, and you had to do all your math problems that way. And then people were just computing that quickly. When the calculator came out, you didn't even need to really learn math in
Cheats.
school.
You get
You
crutches.
may need to learn how to do different like equations just so you can apply that math. And now the computer, the smartphone, and the next thing you know, we have AI, which can effectively make, and I'm just reading this out of my AI that I've been playing with. Well, artificial intelligence, here are some ways that entrepreneurs can use AI: automating tasks, making better decisions, personalizing experiences, create new products and services, improve efficiency. So all these things are things that people would actually need to either learn how to do or have someone else do for them. But if you're having a machine, or in this case, artificial intelligence, do a lot of these steps for you, sure, it makes things more convenient for the entrepreneur. But I think for the human in general, over time, generation after generation, people will just become more dependent and probably less intelligent.
And that's something that, like, I think that kind of goes with like all walks of life, all walks of technology. There's always going to be the normies, the neurotypical brains, the non-entrepreneurial type people who just want to be able to plug and play and do their thing and not have to worry about other things. The ones who are convenience seekers, yeah, I think it can be very dangerous for them. But the people who are independent thinkers, honestly, it literally unlocks so much, because they're gonna use that boredom to their advantage. Now, for the people who are, the normies, it's kind of like, I have this thing where it's like, think about how much of a disservice convenience and luxury is for the masses. It used to be that from sunup to sundown, people would work in the fields and work in the home just to eat, to survive. But now everything is so taken care of. We have so much free time. And so now we have this added burden of mental health, because we have time to think about it. We have time to sit in our emotions more. We have time to sit and ponder things that no one had time to sit and ponder about before. And honestly, the whole world is crumbling because everyone is so up in arms about situations that just were so petty and unheard of, like 100 years ago even. And so I think that's what AI is going to do too, is like there's going to be even more mental health problems, more shitty dynamics just with human beings and interacting in general, because we don't know how to interact. We're not meant to interact on this much of an open space interaction level. We're meant to be constantly working together as a team, constantly working. You take the work away from us, we freak out. And so like these entrepreneurial minds, how we do things, we get bored and we start creating stuff. We want to be creators. There are people who don't want to create. They want to just work and do their thing and do the busy bee stuff. Those people, it's going to be a huge disservice to them because they will not have any idea what to do with themselves. But for people who are like entrepreneurial, the people who want to create and constantly finding new ways to use the world around them to create new things for people, to actually improve people, the people who aren't power seeking, but actually improvement seeking, it's going to unleash some serious powers for us.
I think that's a really great way to put that. Yeah. I think for those who are looking to create and want to be creative, and that typically can be entrepreneurs because they're always trying to solve a problem.
Right.
That's where AI can be an advantage.
Right.
Like I was thinking like one of the good things that can probably come from AI was we'll probably get to space and colonize space sooner because AI will help us set. And for an entrepreneur, like the goal is to solve a problem. Sure, like the side effect of solving that problem or improving the solution to a particular problem, it is money in an entrepreneur's mindset. But at the core of it, what we're doing as entrepreneurs is taking a problem that's out there in the world, right? Whatever it may be. For me, it's like how can men be better at taking care of their skin? Well, and for others, it could be like, how can I make my dog's walk more enjoyable and safe or something? And taking those and being creative with regards to how to find solutions to that problem. I think that's where AI is going to be the most helpful for entrepreneurs. But I also think, Naomi, to what your point was about for those who are 9-to-5ers, day in, day out, just working just to be a part of the PR, part of the groupthink or whatever. AI can essentially be fairly detrimental with regards to like taking over those tasks and making things a lot more almost too convenient for people.
My other thought to build on both of your concepts here, I love AI. I'm a programmer. I've been in love with this concept for a long time. And I'm also not optimistic about how it's going to create our lives and make them better, because I don't think it will in the totality. However,
Correct.
even during those times, I think one of the opportunities for entrepreneurs specifically is look for the problems that AI creates and go solve those problems. Riding the train of using AI is cool, but look for the opposite as well.
I honestly think it'll change education, because right now education is focused on training the worker bees to take the jobs that AI will be taking over in the future, which means that in order for education to actually be a conformation of sorts, it will need to shift from creating worker bees to creating people who are more entrepreneurial so they can actually have a useful place in the world. So I think the education system will become less of what it is now and gear more towards people going for what I feel like it'll gear more towards encouraging people to learn how to create, because I think there will be a huge crash and burn in mental health if they don't. And I think entrepreneurially, entrepreneurs, the people who are problem solvers, they will end up with more power and more influence in that regard, which I think will end up being the reason that the education system will change. I think it will have to shift. And I think that will be a result. I don't think it will happen for a long time. I think what'll happen first is AI will take over those jobs. There will be a huge health crisis, huge mental health crisis. And then through years, maybe even decades of that, the education system will slowly change and turn towards people doing what going for a certain career or training for a certain career or a certain creativity from a young age. And I think it'll shift into that in an effort to, again, solve that problem of the mental health crash.
So you think that AI will force society to become more creative individually?
Yep. Not immediately. I think in a few decades. Because literally, you're taking away the jobs of the people who are not being creative. I think literally society trains people to not be creative, to conform. If AI is taking over the conformation, where people who are trained to conform are supposed to be going, where do they have to go? There's going to be that's a dead end.
That's a positive. So that's a positive result, in my opinion. That would be a positive result.
I think it'll be a crash and burn, though. It might be a post-apocalyptic world at that point, though. I mean, to Jason's point of it'll end the world as we know it. It really will. And I think honestly, because of that, because people train their whole lives to be able to be plugged into society in a certain way, just being that worker bee, 9 to 5, doing those things, that's literally what the masses are trained to do. When suddenly they don't have a place to do that, honestly, I think it could lead to mass exodus via unaliving selves. I think that's where mental health could take it, honestly.
I'm going to look at it like, remember the backstory to Demolition Man?
No.
And I love bringing up movies for this because there's so many movies that talk about future stuff. But remember, you guys seen Demolition Man? Have you seen Demolition Man with Naomi? Starring Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes.
I've seen Interstellar.
Sure. Interstellar. Okay, well that's different. But Demolition Man is so it's a story about two guys, Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. Sylvester Stallone is this cop and Wesley Snipes is the super villain of sorts, this gangster or something. And they both get cryogenically frozen, right? For as a prison sentence for one reason or another. I'll tell you, we could talk about that later. But what happens is that they're both awakened in the future. Roughly, I guess it's like 20. I think they were like 2020 or something like that. Like apparently they would be awakened now. There's real life. And part of the story is Sylvester Stallone's character asks, like, what happened? Like how, and when they woke up in a utopia of sorts, right? Everything is like all white and like color wise, and they have all this fancy stuff like self-driving cars and computers and things like that. Like I suggest you watch the movie, you'll understand. And it's actually a pretty good movie. Under the surface, there is a subculture where people are like homeless or, they have fires made out of like gas drums and things like that underground and so forth. And so the question was, why did this society turn out this way where you have this huge separation of like utopia and dystopia, essentially?
Mhm.
And their explanation for that is in that time that they were frozen, the world or society went through these huge major changes with regards to like chaos and order and then apparent and at the end of it and what led it to this place was there's somebody who went ahead and took out all the things that would happen and one way or another organized everything and made it all like utopian. So bad explanation I'm giving here, but what I'm trying to say is that I feel like society is going to go through these major changes to your
Right.
point of like the world ending as we know it, as what we've seen. And these next generations, Generation Z and the generations after that will know a completely different. Like I was just listening to a podcast where they were talking to this girl who's a content creator. They were creating content for her and her family creating content around her since she was 5 years old and she's now 18. And most of her life has been documented over YouTube and so forth. So I think the world as we know it with regards to like going outside and, finding ways to entertain ourselves that don't include a phone or a computer, those days are long gone. Now, what these new generations are contending with are the panopticon of cameras being everywhere and constantly documenting yourself, even in the most uh, mundane activities that you can be doing through your life. And I think beyond that, once we get into AI and a lot of these things are going to be made more convenient and these decisions can be made for you. I think we're going to go through another type of technological revolution. And hopefully it would come out on the other side for the better. At least those generations of our
Right.
people will. And I'm just glad that I won't be around for it.
Right? That's the thing is it's like I don't this transition, I think these next 3 or 4 decades is going to be just trying to get our footing to catch up with technology. Because you have people who are growing up in like the pre-technology boom phase, like trying to catch up with where technology is, but people who are being raised on technology, they're much quicker. Like my 3-year-old can swipe through my phone and like end calls faster than I was ever able to figure out. And I'm like, what? Like my kids,
Yeah.
I don't do tablets at my house. We don't do tablets. They do not do handheld like digital devices. Absolutely not. Like I'm no, 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 no. I mean, they're gonna learn, but at the same time, I'm like, but am I doing them a disservice? Because will they not be able to catch up and not be able to use these pieces of technology that their friends will be able to use because they grew up on them? And so it's like I don't want them to kill their brain cells, but at the same time, I don't want them to be far behind and part of the problem of like not being able to catch up and use the technology that everyone else knows how to use. I think these next 3 or 4 decades are gonna be this, humanity just tripping all over itself, trying to figure out how to use the technology that it created. Because the people who created it, they
I
know
just
how to use it, but the rest of society, we don't know. The average Joe does not know how to. I couldn't even exit out of the Zoom meeting. That's like, and I should have like I figured it out. Like it took me a second to think, oh yeah, the escape button. Oh yeah, but like
try converting a PDF into a Word format and tell how you feel. That is
no,
some shit. That is
no,
terrible. But I think
no, thank you.
I want to get to. I hope if reincarnation is a thing and we're reincarnated into this type of world, I would just want to be there where we're on, spaceships and exploring other worlds and things like
Right.
that. But to that
Star Trek.
point, like you look straight up, and then, but we can also end up like Star Wars, which is even weirder because there's a whole bunch of like religious connotations around that as well. My
Yeah.
point is that I think AI is revolutionizing,
Yeah.
right? In the sense that everything that up until the pandemic, right? Sales, customer service, all the stuff that required people to do computer work in offices, number one, has been essentially mitigated. Like roughly probably about 20% of the industry does that now. And while they're trying to get back into better numbers for people that go into offices. But that being said, these companies are looking at AI as like, well, here are jobs that we can save money on payroll from with this. And I feel like with the pandemic and with now the advent of AI, technology is going to either do two things, going to evolve or devolve at twice the rate that we expected.
Mm.
That's my prediction. AI will exacerbate problems much faster than we've ever been able to do it.
And so
And we will
solving will be harder.
find ourselves at extremes at a much faster pace.
Life will be a soap opera for everybody.
Like it's going to be like global warming. Everything's going to be extremes. And
There you go. But
Yeah.
we're going to have
honestly,
extreme weather, extreme
Until you go into the
problems,
ice
everything's
course
gonna be
and you find out.
extreme.
Yeah, until you go into the ice course and you find out that global warming is bullshit.
so like, but that kind of like goes to my
Oops.
point though, like
Who
where
knew?
things are going to be exacerbated, like, very quickly, honestly. To the point that I was making earlier, like where people are, well, education's going to change. Going with my earlier point of religion, I feel like God sent us down here to create. And I think that some of us naturally go towards creation and wanting to solve those problems. But with society trying to conform people to not want to create and just to conform, when education, AI is gonna speed up the process to get there. It's gonna kind of be like a refiner's fire onto God sent us here to create, and it's going to get us to a point where people are educated to be able to create and to look within themselves to be able to create. So we can get, I don't know. I think it just like to marry those ideas together, if that makes sense.
I think AI is going to be as revolutionary as the wheel or the printing press.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So to kind of like tie this all up,
Yes.
Naomi, AI.
Thank you, Ryan.
Naomi, AI, are you negative or positive about it, or a mix of both, or undecided?
Mix of both, because I think it's I had a conversation with my brother where he was like, I know we're like wrapping this up, so I'm not going to get too far into the story, but
Yeah, no stories. A mixture of both.
It makes sure both. You use it to write a love note to his wife.
Jason,
feel authentic.
Love it, hate it, mix of both, or undecided?
Mix of both. Yes. The micro, I love it. The macro, it's a net negative for humanity.
I'll be honest, I'm undecided. I think, and it sounds like the mix of both, but I feel like we have to see. I think there's going to be more that's going to be coming out of this that's going to be game changing for many people. And I'm excited to see what that's going to look like. And I also dread it because with the overpopulation of the world right now, even through the millions of people that apparently died through the pandemic, how considering that people can't work, where's the money going to go? And the way with capitalism, the way things are right now, not many people have all the money. So what's going to happen with the people who AI will replace jobs with?
And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I feel like in the business world, it's positive. In the personal world, for people, like human interaction, humankind is generally, I think it's a huge negative. And I think that's why I'm gonna make sure of both, because personal wise, relational wise, it's going to be bad. But yeah, for the people who are capitalizing on it, I think it's going to be a really, really, really good thing.
All right, cool. Well, that's the workshop on AI.
That's one of many.
Professor.